So this will be somewhat of a bonus lecture talking about interactive image viewers in R. So what I'm going to do is show you how to manipulate images interactively using an R package, and I'm also going to show you some other image viewers that are cross-platform that allow you to look at images interactively so you can explore your data a little bit more fluidly than just plotting certain images statically. So I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So I'm going to load up the FSLR package because I want to read in an image. Right? Again, you could also do this with oro.nifty. But right now, I'm in the Kirby21 Visit 1 Patient 113 folder. Right? So this is one patient, and I'm going to read in the MP range, the T1 weighted image. So as you see, image is this nifty object. If I say the dim, so the dimensions are 170 by 256 by 256, right? And we could use the orthographic or the ortho2 function to actually plot it. So, okay, so we see here, so we can't really click anything, but it shows you one, slice of the data in some respects. So there are interactive viewers out there that allow you to click around. So one of the ones we talked about, so there's FSL view. So if we actually put the image in there, right, the nifty object or the file name, that will allow FSL's native viewer to be run and load it up. So again, right, we can look through this, we can zoom in, right, we can look at different areas there. So FSL view is one option to do interactive plotting, right? But as you see, it popped up a different window, right? And a different window that is kind of based on if you have FSL view installed. And what we wanted to do, even though in our course FSL is assumed to be installed on your virtual machine, we want to show you something that's a little bit more native to R, right? So you see some warnings and stuff like that, and that's due to FSL and actually FSLR. So again, FSL gives you one way to look at a viewer interactively. There are some different viewers out there that some people think are better or worse, and one of them out there is called Mango. So if you just Google Mango viewer, so you look at the Research Imaging Institute, Mango. So it has a lot of information here about what it supports and all this kind of stuff. But Mango is, again, a third-party piece of software, a piece of software that's not included in R. And I'm going to bring it up right now. That allows you to look at slices of an image interactively. So let's open an image. So again, we're going to take the MP range. It's going to load it up. And so we should be able to click through different slices, top towards the bottom of the brain, looking at different structures. We can change the windowing in some respects to highlight certain aspects of the brain, darken areas. So look at, more of the white matter or something in some respects. You can overlay things, so you can add regions of interest. You can get statistics. You can get statistics over regions of interest. For example, you do the histogram. Again, I wouldn't necessarily suggest to do a histogram here, right? Although it's a good utility, right? We've really striven to be working with data in R, so you can easily, for example, go back to your R and say hist see image, and we can see that histogram. You can also say the image is greater than 0. And let's make the breaks. A lot of breaks. So we can also do things like let's find the 10th quantile, right? Let's maybe say the not, right, for the image greater than 0. And again, so these are things we can do interactively to try to find certain things. So we can actually show the histogram for, we are still seeing a huge spike at 0. We're actually start towards the lower end. So I'm going to make this like 10th 1,000 or something like that to try. So we can see certain parts of the distribution. And again, this is really good because it doesn't necessarily show. It shows you more bins, right? We chose to do 200. It did a little bit more. But if we did the min be 0 here, it would show you something similar to that. But okay, so Mango is a good viewer, especially if you have multiple images. But again, this is a third-party piece of software, but I think it's pretty good. I know a lot of collaborators, and I tend to use this for certain things. I also like FSL View. So the other one we're going to talk about is called Itk Snap, and it's a piece of software coming out of Penn. So this is another good image viewer if you want to do segmentations or tracings. It's also a very good piece of software for that. Usually it's pretty fast, so if you download it, you'll get this message say, do you want to allow it to be open? So yeah, let's browse. I'm going to go back to the data we've been talking about. Alright, so the MOOC, data, Kirby 21, we're going to go to visit 1, picture 113, we're going to go to the MP range, it auto correctly identifies that it is nifty. As I finish, and again, we can view different slices. This is a 3-dimensional rendering that you can do, and there's a lot of different functionalities, and it's hard to necessarily go through every single one of them in each one of these packages. So they also have really good documentation. So you can zoom in like you did in FSL. Right, say twice, 4 times, right? So we can zoom in, zoom to fit, center on cursor. So we can change around certain things, but this allows you to look at different slices of the brain kind of interactively versus just getting one snapshot view of like Ortho 2. Now, that being said, for reproducibility, we do suggest that if you're going to do publication figures or anything like that, then I would do that in R using Ortho 2 or the image function to actually plot the data so that I can reproduce it later, right? So we can, again, adjust the contrast. This is kind of similar to the transfer function that Elizabeth should have touched on previously. So anyway, these are good pieces of software that are not specific to R. They have nothing to do with R that allow you to interactively view your images. So that being said, this class is very, very heavy on R. And so I'm going to talk about a package called papayar. So if you go to the Mango webpage, it says there's Mango, which is for all the 3 main operating systems. And then they've implemented this image viewer in a system called Papaya, right? So it's a little cute because they have Mango, and now it's called Papaya. But it's written completely in JavaScript, so you can view your images on a web page. So if you go to the Papaya web page, it shows you kind of how to look at certain things like that. And so I think it'll, yeah, so if you actually click here to run, it'll show you what comes up. So we can add an image, right? Again, let's go to visit 113, Kirby 21, all that fun stuff. So again, this is a nice lightweight browser. So there aren't as many options, right? So that is actually somewhat of a good thing if you're starting out, to have the options be relatively limited, right? So you can see the orientation, you can see a ruler to actually get some measurements on these things. And again, I would use these for interactive viewing. I wouldn't necessarily use them for figure generation unless you made a really good figure, for example, and you couldn't figure out how to do it in R, but it was super simple how to do it here. So there's other fun overlays. Again, when we looked at the histogram, this histogram is a little bit wide or long, I guess, in some respects. So you can do rotations, right, if you want to rotate the head, like it's looking down for some reason now. I don't know why necessarily people do that, but again, you can view different things, and you can view regions of interest, right? You can also swap the views to look at different parts, right? So now the sagittal view is in plane, the axial's over here, the coronal's over here. Again, we can go to the center, and this is kind of the center of the brain. So this is papayar. And the nice thing about it being written in JavaScript is that we can wrap an R package around it, which I did, to allow you to pass in objects from R and have it interactively viewed. So, by the time this package or this lecture airs, we should be able to install papayar the same way you normally would install.packages. So currently, and if you also want to download the development version of papayar, you can use DevTools. So you'd have to have the DevTools packages installed. If not, you can say install.packages DevTools, but this should install it, but I already have it installed, so I'm not going to go through that. But again, remember, we have image, which is a nifty object, right? And let's say something over 500 thousandths. Let's do an overlay real quick of ortho2, image is greater than 5, right? So now we're just going to display the image again, but we're also going to put in a region of interest on top of it that says highlight the voxels that are over 500,000. So that's what we're looking at here. These are the voxels in red that have values over 500,000. So what I'm going to do is call that mask. Okay. I'll highlight this up for a second. So now, I accidentally just resourced everything, but we're going to let that run and I'm going to talk a little bit. So what we're going to do is pass this into papaya. Right? So that's the function that you pass in images. So if you can either pass in file names or you can pass in nifty objects, but it has to be in a list if it's nifty objects. So we're going to put in the image and a mask. So once we do this, we're going to wait a second and it's going to write these out to a specific folder, and then we're going to be able to view these interactively within the RStudio window. Right? So that's what's really nice. You're all within R. Right? It's a little small, but we can make that a lot bigger. And I'll show you how to do this at the command line if you want something to pop up that is a little bit better in your browser. So again, this is a mask. It just goes from 0 to 1. So we can actually change it so the colors can be more transparent. So we should be able to change it. Let's say positives. And then I think we can say 1 to 1. Nope. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. 0 to 0.5. So, right, we can hide the overlay, so we can toggle on and off. But for example, if this was a region of interest or a segmentation, you'd be able to view the image and interactively go through the slices without having to plot, ortho2 over and over and over again. So I think this is a nice way to interactively view your data. It's all within R. If you're using RStudio, it'll have a viewer set up here. So right now I'm going to show you, what if you were using, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, the R app. Again, I'm going to run something very similar over here. I'm going to run these 3 lines. And again, we're going to run the same code, but it's not going to show up in an RStudio viewer. It's going to show up in a web browser. So whatever your web browser may be, in this case my default is Chrome, and it'll actually show you the same things. Let's change the color table. No. Okay, so now yellow is the mask. So this starts a server on your computer, it loads up these images and allows you to interactively view it. When you close it, you can go right back to your R session, and you can just kill the command, and then you can continue going on and say like, oh, I saw ROI is bad in this slice, and you can change certain things. But that is, in some respects, the long and short of running papayar and interactive viewing. Now, there is another package called Itk Snap R, which I'll show you, for example, that you can install it. Oh, give me 1 second. I have to actually stop that command from running because it's looking at it interactively. So it should download this package right here. I'm going to load it in a second. So it might take a second to actually download. And again, you have to make sure you're on the internet for all this. So it's going to download, it's going to install. I'm just going to clear out that. Yeah, I'm going to clear some of these plots. So it should be installing on your system, and then we would load it up the same way we would load up anything else. So now there's a function called Itk Snap, and so right now grayscale. So I'm going to actually just put in the image that we were interested in, and so you just say Itk Snap. So now this more or less will just prepackage an Itk Snap executable and install it somewhere in your system, wherever that R package is installed, and it'll allow you to run things interactively. So this is not really staying within R, right? Papayar will allow you to stay within R in the sense that it will start a web browser and you can view it that way and stay in RStudio. This is just allowing Itk Snap, allowing you to pass in, for example, nifty objects to an R function that'll load a viewer. So it's very similar to FSL View in that respect. But this is still a third-party viewer, but it's still a good way to potentially view things interactively, to get an idea of your data interactively, to see what's really going on. So I recommend Papayar because I think it's nice to have certain things within the browser window that you're actually doing, and also, for example, in your web browser. But overall, this is a way you can interactively explore your data without having to do like image z equals 1, 2, 3, 4, or look at some lightbox view, right? So I'll show you what I mean by that. Because if you just say image on a nifty object, it'll by default plot every single slice of the brain, because the default is not to do plot.type equals single, which we actually showed here. While that's loading, I can say and here I'm loading Aura.nifty instead of FSLR, but it doesn't really matter because FSLR loads Aura.nifty by default. So if I say image.nifty, it says it produces a lightbox view of images for nifty, analyze, or AFNI objects, and you see plot.type by default, because the first is multiple, which means it'll plot out every single slice of an image. This is taking a little bit of time, actually, for RStudio, and that can happen sometimes when you have some images that you're going to plot that can be somewhat big. Image. Right, you see it goes through every single slice and it plots that, and they're almost like thumbnail size. So that's not really great. Right, I'm going to kill that for real quick. You can say z equals 90, 180. So, oops. So we can say this, but it's not going to do what you necessarily think it's going to do. All right, it still thinks it wants you to do all this. So you have to say plot.type equals single, right? So that's a little bit unintuitive for the image.nifty, right? But if I want to do 90, let's say 30, 90, 180, 200 on these plots, it'll show you those specific slices. Okay, you can also put, you want to do image.nifty for help. Right, and so this is if you have 4 dimensions, you also want to specify W, right, so that you actually can specify which time point that you want to look at. But again, if you wanted to put overlays, right, because I've been showing you how to do X and Y, or show the image with some threshold value, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So let's, instead of this, say mask is image is greater than body 5, right? So like we were doing over here, right? So again, this is a little bit of a lagginess in RStudio in some respects. That's why I'm kind of working in the terminal right now. You say image mask, and say all these same options. something went a little weird there. Image mask z equals. I think that's working. So it doesn't actually seem like it did what we wanted. We have to say mask equals 0 equals NA. So we actually have to take out values that are 0, otherwise they're going to get mapped to that. And this is, for example, showing what it would look like if you overlaid them. We can also change call.y equals red. So now we're saying these are the values over 500,000 on the slices 30, 90, 180, 200. But again, papayar will allow you to do this kind of interactively. You have to tweak, to play with some of the controls to kind of get a handle on it. And we're not going to go into all those controls here, but it's good at least for the very basics of putting an image and an overlay. And you use this papaya command. There is the Itk Snap R. If you've ever used that and you're more comfortable with that. FSL view also will allow you to do an interactive viewer that has a little bit more tools, has the ability to do histograms. If you want to install Mango on your own, that is also an option. But the nice thing about papaya, or papayar, is it allows you to manipulate objects in R like you normally would, and you just pass in a list of those nifty objects, just like we've been showing you with some of the other commands. And that's how you can do interactive plotting in your day-to-day. And papayar, if you're using RStudio, will allow you to look at things through the viewer pane, which I think is very nice. And it'll actually keep that up for some time, as long as you don't, cancel this out. So we can actually close that, and it'll actually close that connection. But overall, papaya is great because it's written in pure JavaScript, so that we don't have to depend on a lot of things for R to be able to use it. Some of the functions I think some of the functions in Oro.nifty are really good that have been expanded a bit in FSLR, like Ortho 2. They're really good, I think, for customizing figures and trying to get figures in the way you want them. But they're generally only 2D, but for interactive viewing. So for scrolling through images, for scrolling through slices, I recommend using papayar, Itk Snap, or Itk Snap R, Mango, or maybe FSL View. So I think these are some of the options that you have to explore your data a little bit, to find maybe somewhere where some artifacts are, somewhere oddities are in your data. But this is a step towards interactive viewing that is very helpful in analysis. All right, thank you.